And we're live now. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi, everybody. And I want to introduce everybody tonight. I'm Debbie Duncan from psychicfixes.com. And we have Cara Carter, Gubrud here to do our ghost stories tonight. And we have a special guest, Brandi Wheeler. Hi, Brandi.
Hello.
hi, Brandy.
So Brandi has consented to talk about a ghost story tonight. Just as we extend to everybody just to give us an email at psychicfixes@gmail.com if you have a ghost story and you want to come on and tell us all about it. That'd be a lot of fun. So tonight we've got lots of different things going on here. I think we probably have like an asylum and maybe some kind of a castle and some other kind of scary places to visit. And what's really neat about this show, you guys, is that we tell our own true ghost stories. We tell ones that have been handed down through time, and we let you guys decide what you think. So anyway, I want to tell everybody to pick up Kara's book. So let me show you guys her book. Kara, do you want to say a couple words about it?
This was a true labor of love. Um, I wanted a supernatural story, but I also wanted, the characters to that, any that you would see in everyday life. Um, and I wanted twists and turns, and I wanted you to not be able to figure out the end until you got to that last page. So I hope that you will buy the book, read it on Kindle, and do and maybe even review it if you like it. And tonight, if you share our show, I am going to Deborah's going to pick the winner, but I am going to autograph a copy and send it out to a lucky winner who shares our show tonight. And Debbie will announce that at the end of the show.
Oh, that's exciting. Yes, I'll pull up the wheel of names and I'll put names on that. We one little thing, if you are out of the United States, I think, Kara, we could probably send a digital copy.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Okay, I'm going to go with the wheel of names up. That's one of my favorite things. So do let me know if you share the show, you guys, and then I will put your name on the wheel. Okay. Awesome. And it is a supernatural. It's got some supernatural in this book.
It
We got
does.
a ghost. It's great. So, Shadows of Satan, you guys, it's for sale on Amazon. If you are watching on Facebook, you'll be able to see a link on the page to go right to it and buy it. If you're on YouTube, just go to Amazon.com and put in Kara's name, Cara Carter Gubrud, and it's right there. Anyway, congratulations, Kara,
Thank
on publishing
you.
that book. Okay, Kate's gonna get on the wheel of names.
Yay, Kate.
Yay. So, Kate, your name is on there. Okay, so we are going to get started because I think we're jam packed. We have a lot of stories to do, correct?
Yeah, well, we have three, but they're all really big stories.
Okay, and do you want to introduce to the first one that we're going to do?
Yes, we're going to start with the Preston Castle in Ioni, California.
There we go.
That is a towering castle, by the way.
It's awesome.
It is. It was actually built in the started in 1890. I think it finished in 1894, and it was known as also known as Preston School of Industry, and also Preston School or Youth Correctional Facility. Um, that building is 50,000 square feet. 50,000. It has a basement, but it has four floors. And if you look at the round part or where that square is, that is a 3-story annex, which is pretty wild. Um, but it was best known, excuse me, as people thought it was the best reform school in the country, but that was the outside world. The inside, it was probably one of the most horrendous things. Starting off, when a young boy was sent there, they were stripped down completely naked, and they were forced to walk in this pool filled with lye. And if you know what lye soap is or lye is, it is very painful, especially if you have a sore. And many of these kids had cuts and bruises and sores and things. And they were forced to walk and even go underwater with their heads in this. So it could have burned their eyes. They could have ingested it, just a horrible, horrible thing. And the weird thing, too, is the staff uh, apartment quarters were on the second floor with one of the boys' dormitories. I find that a little creepy because I don't think, especially since we know how the staff has been at many of these places, I think that's a tragedy waiting to happen personally. I really do. Um, and there were some horrific stories that of neglect and abuse and beatings. There's many boys died there from severe illnesses. Tuberculosis at one point ran rampant. It was already bad in many parts of the country, but it ran rampant in the boys' school. And instead of transferring them to like a tuberculosis sanitarium, they left them there to infect others. But there were a lot of them that died from severe beatings too. And from the guards, I should say. A lot of the guards were very violent towards these young men. And I think they were as young as 7. But I can't imagine sending off one of my grandchildren to something like that. But there's actually a cemetery on the grounds behind there that holds 23 bodies of young boys that died there at the hands
Oh
of the
no.
guards. Yeah. And another unsolved murder was Anna Coburn was the head housekeeper of Preston Castle, and she was found beaten to death. And there was some staff members who were suspects, as well as a couple of boys, which I don't think the boys could have done the amount of damage that was done to her. I think it was one of the staff members, one of the guards, or even one of the orderlies who murdered her. But her death happened on February 23rd, 1950, and to this day is unsolved. They have not solved it at all. Um, and then, well, there were some famous people who went through there, including Merle Haggard. he spent some
Oh,
time, Merle Haggard spent some time at the reformatory, and he actually escaped twice. Uh, but he's talked about that too. About one of his escapes and stealing a car and getting caught because he didn't know how to drive it or something. Um, but the school finally closed in 1960, and it started to deteriorate. I mean, you can kind of see some of the wear and tear on it now, but they've actually done a lot to start fixing it. It was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2014, and it was deeded to the Preston Castle Foundation, where they are going to rehab it and restore it and bring it back to its former glory. Hopefully, not open it up as a reform school again,
no.
Because
but
definitely
yeah.
not.
So since there were so many horrific deaths, whether it was illness neglect, malnutrition, beatings. Um, there's a lot of haunting associated with the Preston Castle. Excuse me, ladies. But one of the things that people have said is when you walk through that front door, you immediately feel like this depressing, disturbing atmosphere, like your heart is heavy and you just can't, it's almost like you can't breathe. It's just so heavy. I can't imagine as an empath walking through those doors. I don't think I would last past 5 feet in, honestly. Um, but some of the past horrors also seem to be what is the word I'm looking for? They're like the ghosts are reliving their horrific deaths. There are different things that are heard on different floors, and um, Anna Corbin, she had one of the most violent deaths. She's the only woman who was murdered there, obviously, but she is roaming the halls with many of the young boys who were killed there too. It's like she's there, kind of like they could not, um, they couldn't free themselves from there, but it's almost like she's there, kind of watching over them, protecting them. She's seen roaming in the halls, and some little boys are seen tagging along with her. So it's interesting. There are a lot of footsteps. There's a lot of doors that close by themselves. Um, they're not pinpointed to one particular floor or room because of many of the horrific acts that happened throughout, throughout every floor of the place. And one of the sad things is that the public had no idea because the boys were dressed so properly. They had tennis courts, they had a pool, they had all these different amenities. They had a library filled with thousands of books for them. And so the public thought, oh, this is phenomenal. But the hauntings tell a different story. They tell the pain and anguish that many of these children, I'm going to say children because they were under 17, that they suffered at the hands of these guards and orderlies. And, I'm sure they had doctors on staff. But they were neglected and abused and just taken from their families. So it's a very dark place. It really is.
It's a shame. It's just a majestic building. I
Yeah.
mean, it's fabulous.
Yeah. The
Um,
people in, yeah, the people in Ioni had no clue what was going on.
mhm. Cara, now was this built for, someone and then turned into the boys' home or?
No, it was built. It was always built with the intention of using it for a facility.
Okay.
It was actually, it's right now it's on 13 acres, but it was on substantially more when it was built in the 1890s. But it was always meant to be a facility for young boys.
Okay.
Whether it was intended as a reformatory, or if they just later decided to use it once it was completed as that, I'm not sure. But it was always supposed to be some kind of school or something for boys.
Mm.
And when it opened, it was a reformatory right away, as soon as it
Okay.
opened.
Okay.
So it's just sad, the dark history. And like I said, the people of Ioni had no clue. Some people even referred to it as the country club,
Oh,
like the country club of reform schools, because they had all these books to read. They had classes, they had swimming, I think they had a gymnasium at some point, but they had the tennis courts. Tennis courts seem to be a thing for the wealthy.
Yeah.
So seeing tennis courts on the grounds, people originally just thought, oh, it's, you know,
Right.
it's not a reformatory. It's more of a haven for them.
Yeah.
But
They
they
probably
just,
thought it was a soft way to go,
yeah, and they
So,
just didn't realize how bad it was. I mean, think 23 boys died from either severe illness, malnutrition, and beatings. And that's just the ones that are in those graves. I don't know if there. I couldn't find on whether or not there were any missing children, like we've seen, like with Dozer. So I'm not. I'm just not sure. But it's very. It has a very just ominous feeling when you walk in, and that's everybody who goes there feels it.
I imagine there's some children that may have passed away and their family came and received the body for burial someplace
Right?
else. So,
Yeah. Could have been
who knows?
orphans. They did have orphans there too.
Oh my.
Which
Which would
I
be,
still.
if they're orphans, technically they could go undocumented because who's checking in to see if they are still there or what's happened with them? There's nobody there.
Right.
Yeah.
Even in more modern times, now the counties lose track of foster children.
Yes.
So back then, they were forgotten, these people, these
Yeah.
kids.
Out of
Yeah.
sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There was a missing girl out of Chicago. I think Zach was a baby when it happened. Um, and DCFS lost track of her. She was at this one foster home. And then the next thing you know, no one checks on her for like a year. And when they finally track down the foster mother, oh, I don't know, she left. Well, it turns out the foster mother and the foster mother's boyfriend or whatever killed this little girl. And DCFS didn't know, and they didn't find her body for years.
That's so terrible.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
extremely sad.
I
Extremely
think
sad.
if they dig into this stuff in the United States, they're going to, dig up some really sad things and a lot of missing kids.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but that is Preston Castle. I still find it interesting. One of the times that Merle Haggard escaped, he stole a car, and I don't know if he knew how to. I think it was stick shift maybe or something. I don't think he knew how to drive it. He hit a tree or something going like 30 miles an hour or less. He jumped out. He hid in. He hid off to the side. I don't know if it was like a cubby or something in between two houses or something. But when the police were out there by the car, the sheriff's son, the little boy, came over to where he was, and Merle Haggard was like, little boy's like, here, 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 and that's how he was caught that time.
Well, he has a wild story to tell, I guess.
Yeah, he put it in his. I think he put it in his biography too.
Oh, wow.
So kind of interesting there.
Hmm.
But yeah, that is unfortunately that is a sad story of Preston Castle, and I hope
It
they
really
honor
is.
children. I hope they honor those children that are in those graves, and maybe the ones who were taken home by their parents.
Hmm.
It would be nice for them to honor them
Yes.
in
I
some
hope
way
so.
with this foundation. Yeah, because this foundation, they I guess they want to honor the history of the place, so they want to restore it. So hopefully they do something, maybe a list of names or a memorial or
Yeah, I'm sure
something.
they will. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Brandy, I know that you have a pretty wild one under your belt.
Oh, yes. Yes. I've spent quite a bit researching into this. Um, so I am covering the Rolling Hills Asylum in East Bethany, New York. And
Ooh.
it opened up January 1st of 1827 as the Genesee Poorhouse. So it was like the government's way of hiding the people, the destitute, the paupers, anybody that they considered lower than their standards, they would be shipped off to these poorhouses. And this one specifically was supposed to provide housing to orphans, widowed women and their children, because back then, if you was a widowed women couldn't own property back then. So if your husband died and you didn't have a father figure or a brother or somebody, an adult male there with you, they removed you off that property and sent you to these poorhouses with your children, which I thought was just kind of messed up. But, hey,
Yeah,
that's the old days.
it
They've
is.
also housed the disabled people that couldn't, support themselves or help themselves, mentally ill, sorry, and minor criminals. So it didn't matter who you was or what you was there for. You was all housed together. You shared rooms together. Everybody was called inmates. So even the
Oh,
orphans were inmates, which is crazy.
terrible.
Yeah. But in this building, they also had a room in the basement that to this day still has iron brackets protruding out of the cement walls. And it was used for anybody that they considered unruly. So any unruly inmate would go in this basement and they would chain them to the walls. And when they say unruly, they don't mean just like the criminal ones or people who are doing really bad things. It could be somebody as simple as having Tourette's syndrome or autism, Alzheimer's, epilepsy. It did not matter. If you was considered unruly, you went down there. Even men who had wives that thought their wives were being too unruly would bring them to this poorhouse to be chained up in that basement.
Oh, jeez.
My husband would have had me down there constantly. I'm telling you. I never. But, so in the time that it was open as the poorhouse and then turned into an asylum, there is over 1,750 documented deaths. That's the documented ones. There is more, possibly hundreds more, that are not documented, or the documentation has been lost between change of hands with the facility. So
That's crazy. That's so many.
yeah, they don't know how many people have actually died there. There's a mention of a pauper's grave that it's mentioned in the records that there's a cemetery there, but they don't know where it is located at. Nowhere does it say the exact location of this cemetery. So there's so many unmarked graves there that they don't know about. And then there's another graveyard that was marked. It was another pauper's cemetery. But after the asylum closed down, the state annexed all the surrounding grounds around it, or a lot of it, including one of these cemeteries, and it is now the state park. They didn't remove the bodies.
Oh, yeah.
So you have unmarked graves now in the state park, and they're not documented. So it's crazy.
It is.
But so there's a lot of ghost stories that come out of this place, because it is literally listed in several areas that I looked as the second most haunted place in America and the fourth most haunted place in the whole world.
Oh my gosh, I had
So
no idea.
it is extremely haunted, and it is privately owned now. So it is not owned by the state or government. It is actually owned by one lady. Her name is Sharon. And it's open for tours. So people can actually go and do tours. She's had a lot of the paranormal people on YouTube and stuff. They've came through and done their investigations. So I do have some ghost stories that's come from there.
Oh, good.
One of the tragic stories that came from there was about a resident named Roy. Now, he was put there at 11 years old, and the family put him there because he had an extreme form of giantism. So think of the Elephant Man, okay? That's what he had. So he had, his left side of his face was deformed. His hands and feet were extremely oversized. And by the time he was done growing, he was well over 7 feet tall.
Wow.
And he was called the Friendly Giant because he was nice. He wasn't a mean guy. But Sharon, who now owns the building, tells a story on the internet about how when she first got there, about 2 months after taking over the Rolling Hills Cemetery, she was going through the rooms and stuff, and a rat scared her, just terrified the heck out of her, and she ran off screaming. And later that day, she came back to that general area, and she found a dead rat next to the stairs with blood oozing and everything from it, like it had been crushed. And there was a giant bloody handprint on the wall above the rat. And
Oh
Sharon
my.
believes that was Roy witnessing her being scared and him defending her by taking care of that wrath for her.
Wow. That's
But he is
crazy.
commonly seen as a shadow person, and he does interact with the EVPs. He'll follow you through the asylum. He's not just in one general location. He will follow you. And they've done dowsing rods, and he's used dowsing rods to answer yes and no questions with them. So I don't know if you know what dowsing rods are. I'm pretty sure you do, Debbie.
I have
No.
them. Yeah,
Yeah. So
I sure do.
they've done dowsing rods with him and gotten him to respond. Another famous ghost there was a nurse Emmy. So she was known for being absolutely cruel to the inmates there. They all feared her. They considered her very stern. There's even rumors that she performed satanic rituals and black magic on the residents.
Oh
So
my.
there's, reports have circulated that people hear her like a cackle like laugh coming from her room in the infirmary that she was in all the time. There's also a digital recording, an EVP, in her room that was done of what sounded like patients struggling and a stern female voice saying, "Don't you ever do that again." Clear as
Oh
day.
my.
And it literally sounds like these patients are struggling and screaming with her, and she's like, "Don't you ever." So I don't know what they did, but they did something that she didn't like. But that was on an EVP that they recorded. And the lady who caught that EVP said that when she was in that room, she didn't hear nothing. It was just when they listened back to that audio later, they got it.
Yeah.
So another area is called Hattie's room, which is located on the first floor of the East Wing. This room, they've captured an elderly woman yelling hello. And that's all she does. She just keeps yelling hello, hello, hello. And it is believed that it is the voice of a former patient who is named Hattie, who is blind and used to yell hello all day and night to get the attention of the staff and nurses. So she doesn't do anything to anybody. You just catch her on your recordings going hello, hello, try to get people's attention. And
I love that. That's so neat,
yeah,
and when you do these little sessions and everybody's so quiet, and if they do cough or they do anything, they always put the auto. They say so and so coughed, but it's usually so quiet to play it back and have a big noise or something. Everybody's like stymied, like where'd that come from?
yeah, yeah. And so another one of the really haunted places is called the second floor men's dormitory. And it is referred to as the shadow hallway. So this hallway, visitors have reported seeing shadow figures moving about in the hallway, either walking in and out of doorways, across the hallway, they'll peek out of rooms, or they'll even sometimes be seen crawling across the floor towards you. Which
Oh, geez.
that might get me there. If something was crawling at me, I might be like, "Oh, hello, whoa, no, back up some." But in the hallway, you also get the shirt tugs, the flipping into the hairs. They'll knock baseball caps off of people. They've done sessions where they've put in flashlights in there and asked them to push buttons. Turn this flashlight on, turn this one off, and
Right.
they get responses out of it. So they do get that kind of activity in that hallway. So it's pretty active there.
Wow.
And then you come to the famous morgue. So the morgue, it's got to be haunted. So
Yes.
in that room, to this day, there is still the two large embalming tables and the two large refrigerators. They have not removed them. Same with the metal sinks. She's left them all there to make the ghosts feel more comfortable in their surroundings because, it's their place, according to her. That's how she sees it. But
Wow.
it seems like you hear disembodied voices there. Visitors report being shoved down onto the cold tile in there. So there's one that's in there that's mean enough that it will shove you. It's not just hi, it shoves you downstairs and everything
Oh,
into the
yeah.
morgue. So that one is the one I found that had the most, I want to say, violent paranormal activity, because most of them is just the hair pulling or the trying to scare you, but not actually touching and forcing you onto the floor. That one, you get knocked to the floor several times.
You kind of feel like it might have been somebody, that was combative when they passed, and that's what they remember. It's like, get me out or get out of my way, or, maybe somebody was, on top of them grabbing them. So they're grabbing and pushing. And
Yeah.
that one has a lot of strength. They have a lot of energy to do that.
Yes, and I know that we've mentioned before how shadow figures usually they're smaller than what most people imagine they would be, but in this place they have caught with thermal video full-size specters, like tall full-size specters and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, and the shadow figures, a lot of them, they report being your average sized person. They're not tiny shadows; they're big ones. They're well formed. They've been there for a while, so that gives you pause.
Yeah, they're gathering energy, and they build up and they get taller, and that's when they're just a little bit stronger, probably a little bit more knowing, and they can do stuff.
Yep.
So yeah,
And
they got to
That
be
is
careful.
wild.
there's also a tunnel under this asylum, and it's called Jack's Tunnel. Now, this tunnel leads to the only thing it tells you it leads to for certain is the old laundry room. And in the old laundry room and in the tunnel going to the old laundry room, there is a little ghost boy, is what they call him, a little ghost boy. And they called him Jack. And he likes to play with pebbles. So he'll either toss pebbles at you or he'll sneak pebbles into your pockets. So when you're not expecting anything, you'll end up with pebbles in your pocket somehow. And they've also caught him in EVP saying or asking for his ball. So he likes to play with balls, and they'll leave balls around for him to play with, and they'll roll across the floor and everything else. And if he can't find the ball, then you'll get the EVP saying, "Where's my ball? Where's my ball?" So Sharon is kind of fond of that one. The lady that owns the place now, she spends a lot of time down there and doing little paranormal investigations around him.
Wow.
There is another room that's called the Christmas room. And this room is back when they had all the orphans, and also when you had all those big pandemics go through. So you had all the sick kids with the tuberculosis. I cannot say the word tonight. TB, that works. With that, or the Spanish flu and stuff. These little kids, they would set up a Christmas room during Christmas time, and a fake Santa would come in and they'd make their Christmas wish list, and it's decorated with an old-fashioned Christmas tree still, and there's toys all over this room. And you can often hear kids playing with the toys. You can see them moving the toys. You can hear kids laughing in this room. But, it's called the Christmas room just because it's still decorated, and that's what it had been originally used for during that time period. So, I mean, all in all, it doesn't sound like it was totally always a bad place to be. Because, I mean, think about it, the Christmas room. How many asylums do you know have a Christmas room for their kids?
Right.
But it still started out as a pauper's home. So you did have all these criminals living with regular people, and there was incidents because, you can't just put a criminally insane person in with a normal person and not think something's going to not happen.
Right.
The other thing that is mentioned that it was self-sustaining. So if you could work or was capable of working, you had to work. You didn't have an option. You had to. So even these little orphans who are 4 or 5 years old, they're out there having to work with other people to support this place.
Yes. Did they have like a farm and they grew their veggies and all that?
Yes. But where the farm was exactly located on the property, it's not really well known because with the documents that documented the locations of things was lost between all the switching of hands. So after it stopped being a government state building, it became privately owned by 3 people before it got to Sharon. And Sharon was the one that bought it specifically because it was a paranormal place, and she wanted to preserve it and save it so it wouldn't get torn down.
Isn't that amazing to be able to do that, especially if you're, into the paranormal, to actually, purchase and be able to fix up and run something like that? That would be fun.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe she actually was living in California when she heard of this place, all the way to New York. And she had to have it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. She had to have it.
I've seen over time a lot of really historic buildings being sold very cheaply. I remember one in Wyoming that was a bank, and it was fabulous. And I said, "Gee, I want to live there," And they just don't go for very much.
The one thing she has pointed out several times to people, because she does the tours and lets people come in and do paranormal investigations and stuff. but you have to pay to do so. And she's had a lot of people who complain that she's just in it for the money. And as she points out, you don't understand. She lives in this building too. It takes a lot to keep it in the condition it currently is in.
Oh,
So not
yeah.
even exploring it, just keeping it in the condition it is in, it is expensive. So if you're not paying to come in to do the paranormal investigations, where is this money coming from? So you do have to pay to do the tours and do the investigations. But she points out why you do that. It's not for the money. It's to keep this place where it is.
Good shape.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad that she could do that.
Yeah.
Shape of that building is insane.
Yeah.
The door is, and then right above the door with the turret up on the top, that is, the angles are just, it just gives me a creepy feeling. I don't know what it is, but it gives me a creepy feeling.
Yep. And this is, nor did I read that they added on to this building after it was open. So I don't think there was any new annexes added on after 1827. It's kind of just the way the building was shaped. They have mentioned other buildings being torn down and no longer there. But they haven't mentioned anywhere in all the studying and reading I did that they added on to it at any point.
I think it looks friendly to myself.
I don't know if it's just because of the way it's angled there with the door, the way it's set with the double doors, and then going up to the top. I just get an ominous feeling when I'm looking at it.
And by what little research I did, even when they first opened the doors, they basically barren rooms for these people to move into. Like they posted a notice all over the towns that bring your paupers and your poor and everything here with what possessions they own or would need to survive. So it doesn't even sound like they provided cots or anything. You had to bring your own bedding and stuff. So, and if you're a pauper, odds are you didn't have that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like you could run out to the store and whip up a sheet set or an air mattress or anything back then.
Exactly. So it's kind of like it makes you wonder, was they sleeping on the floors on top of each other? I mean, how was that originally set up on? Because they finished building in December of 1826, and they opened the doors literally January 1st, 1827.
Wow.
Do you think that they just took in people right in the county or maybe farther?
I think it was more than just in that general county because the county lines weren't the same back then.
Yeah.
So it was a lot larger area, and this was what I can see was one of the larger poorhouses built at that time. Others were built later on, but at that time, this was one of the larger ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and like I said, it started out as for destitute, paupers, widows, anybody that was seen as below your normal rung of society.
And they needed a place to live.
Yep. So they all kind of got shoved into that building, and
oh my!
I would definitely go to the building and see what the inside felt like. I think just the architecture is kind of freaking me out. Just the angles. I'm one of those people who angles give me a vibe.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And it's got so many angles right there. You know.
I'm going in. I'm going in.
I will go in and see how I feel once I get inside.
6 feet. Push it back out.
I mean, there is so many more stories that paranormal stories than what I just picked out the bigger ones that a lot of people have reported on. But apparently, the whole building, there's not a place that is not paranormal activity going on in it.
Wow.
So, and it's a really big building. I mean, it's not small by any means.
Yes. I think Kate's going to go with me. Kate and I will go in.
Yeah,
I'll go with you.
I'm going.
I need to go to Scotland and go through some of those castles. Kate,
yeah.
That is my dream, is to go sneaking out into some of the older castles.
Debbie awesome.
Camo saying he'll go with you too. He'll be your guard dog.
There you go. Oh, that's so sweet. Well, my girlfriends grew up in a castle. We actually have one here in San Diego, and it had a really, it was so nice, and it had great vibes and everything. But my girlfriend said that she came to my house, which was a little 3-bedroom house, and she goes, "Oh, it's so comfortable. Isn't this really nice?" And I go, "You live in a castle. What do you mean this is nice?" And she says, "We really live in like 2 rooms because we are so scared of the rest of the house."
Oh my.
So,
Wow.
so, I thought she was. You're very lucky. I still do. It's a beautiful castle, but yeah, they were a bit afraid. So, oh my goodness, thank you, Brandy. This was
Yeah.
great.
Now we're heading back right to another sanitarium for TV. We're going to talk about Waverly Hills in Louisville, Kentucky. It was opened in 1910 as a 2-story. Now, see, that is where they added on and they made it 5 stories. But it started out as a little 2-story that had 40 to 50 beds available for TB patients. But the area was ravaged. It was being ravaged by TB, and they actually nicknamed it the White Plague. In 1912, all of the TB patients that were in there, they were moved to a tent city out on the grounds there while they constructed this huge 5-story annex so that they could add more beds. So they added 40 more, and then they added another 50 when they finished the other side. So in total, they had over 130 beds at any given time. And sometimes they had to double up a little bit. And they actually have a children's pavilion there, which is sad. They had children who had TB, but they mixed them in with the children, the healthy children of the patients who were there either dying or being treated for TB.
Oh no.
Yeah, so a lot of the healthy children ended up getting sick with TB because they didn't, in the children's pavilion, they didn't separate them. And then in 1926, the rest of the new part of the building opened, and it was the complete 5 stories, because they've been adding to it. And then in 1943, they TB started being able to be treated by streptomycin, which, by the way, is the drug that saved my father's life too. It was very helpful with the I don't want to say the complete annihilation of the disease, but it really reduced the number of fatalities as well as people getting a full-fledged case of it. They could be treated right away with an antibiotic. The interesting thing off to the side, going down towards those woods, is where they call the area where the tunnel is. And originally the tunnel was used for bringing supplies into the building. There were stairs on one side, and on the other side there was a track for carts, so they could pull the carts up on this pulley system with all kinds of either food or medicines. Some of the crazy things that they brought in there is heat lamps, because they had they believed that heat lamps, fresh air, and positive talk and reassurance is how you could cure tuberculosis.
Oh my gosh.
Well, at least they
Yeah.
did positive talk and not negative things.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
that's right. That's right.
at the height of when people were like dying in droves there, the doctors decided they didn't want patients to see bodies being taken out because that would cause them to get sicker because they had to keep them positive.
Positive.
And so they decided to take the cart that they would bring supplies in, and they would transport the bodies out, and it became known as the body chute.
Oh my God.
Yes, they would take mass amounts of bodies and take them out, and I believe a lot of them were buried in a mass grave because of the infectious nature of their deaths.
Mhm.
I don't think families were able to get TB bodies back then.
Mhm.
But there was I want to say total from the time it opened till it closed in 1961. I want to say there was about 750, maybe slightly more. There's different uh, there's different numbers. Some people have said that it was thousands that died there, but the most that they can really account for is a little over 750. Um, but um, it was not a fun place to be. It wasn't. I mean, they had a lot of patios and things for fresh air and circulation and with the air and stuff, but it was also very cold. The massive wards and things. So there was a lot of hauntings have been associated with this building. And I think one of the saddest ones, or well, two of the saddest ones, there's a little girl who is seen constantly running the hall on the third floor. Um, I don't know if she's playing by herself or if she's running looking for somebody, but she's seen just kind of trotting and running down the hall. And then a little boy is seen with a leather ball, kind of like playing with it and rolling it around in the halls. Um, and then one of the saddest ones to me is there is a woman seen bleeding by her wrists and begging for help from others. And by the body chute or the tunnel, there's a hearse scene dropping off coffins. Like they're still doing their jobs in the afterlife.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But there's on every floor, they will hear slamming doors. In the kitchen, there's a lot of activity in the kitchen by a man in a white coat. And you can, when he is seen, a lot of times, or even if he's sensed, you can smell cooking. You can smell food cooking.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they actually smell food. Um, and they have they've heard footsteps, especially near like the patio areas and some of the infirmary rooms, and in the main dining hall. There's been a lot of activity with footsteps and doors swinging by themselves. And you can even smell fresh baked bread. Let's try and say that 5 times fast. Fresh baked bread in the cafeteria area or the dining hall area coming from the kitchen. Fresh baked bread. Um, Now, the fifth floor has a lot of ominous things. The fifth floor was designed with 2 nurses' stations, and they had dormitories on either side. And then they had this big, you can see up on the very top there, that was more of an open patio where those windows were open and stuff, and people would get just an enormous amount of fresh air and things. But it has so many tragedies. Um, some of them, are considered legends because they can't 100%. There you go, with them outside in the snow getting the fresh air. But they've had many legends that are associated with it, and 502 seems to be one of the most haunted rooms in the entire sanitarium. There are shapes that move around the room, shapes of of humans. They're in the windows. If you're looking into the window from down below, you will see shapes going from window to window. There are disembodied voices that are heard all over, and they have even seen people jumping to their deaths from the fifth floor.
Oh wow.
Can I
Yeah,
tell you
just
something funny? You said disembodied voices, and that is the name of a like a perfume that the Checkered Lily Apothecary, who's our sponsor, happened just to make a name. And
oh,
I found that out today. And then you
that is
say,
neat.
Yeah, that's a neat name for it.
I need to get that perfume for myself.
Yes.
I have to go out and buy it now.
Like, what does that smell? Well, it's disembodied
Disembodied
voices.
voices.
Somebody
That's
voice, don't
perfect
worry.
that's perfect for our show.
Right, right.
But yeah, the bodies are seen jumping off of the floor, which kind of leads to some of the things, the tragedies that happened in room 502. In 1928, a nurse who was single and pregnant and only 29 years old decided to commit suicide by hanging herself in room 502.
Oh.
Do not know how long she was hanging there, or the legend says she was hanging from a sprinkler system pipe, but that sprinkler wasn't in until 1972, so she wasn't hanging there. Some people say she was hanging from a light fixture. It's possible, but it might not have carried her weight. But she could have been hanging from anything in that room. There could have been anything that was there that she put the rope on. And but she's not the only one who committed suicide in that room. In 1932, a nurse jumped to her death from the room 504, from the rooftop patio there that is right outside uh, the dormitory. And they actually said they don't know if she jumped or was pushed, but she may be one of the people who are reenacting the jumping that people have seen. And during the restoration, there was a lot of stuff that went on. Yeah, Kate, it was terrible. There's a lot of things that happened to the crew that was doing restoration on it. There was ghostly sounds. They had slamming doors everywhere where no one was around. There was no wind to be blowing. They had lights appear when no one was in the building. There were lights appearing in spots of the building, just random lights. Like if it had been someone who was in there sneaking a peek, the lights would have gone across, they would have seen them in each window, not seen one in one window and then on the other side of the building see another one. They were just so random. And then there's a strong presence that is felt. And I can't even describe. I mean, people had trouble describing what the strong presence is, but it's just like a feeling of being ill. A strong presence, a feeling of being ill, and this is on the fourth floor that they were feeling this. And as a matter of fact, the owners, for quite a while, kept the fourth floor locked for some reason.
Wow.
But
weird.
yeah, but there was just a presence, just a dark presence there. And shadow figures have been seen all over the place. And then there is one man who comes so clear into focus. He is wearing a white, like a doctor's coat, and his silhouette is just right there when there's no other lights where it could be reflecting something. His silhouette is just right there in front of you, almost like glowing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very it's actually very, I don't want to say creepy, but it's very like maybe he's trapped there. Maybe he was a doctor who was trying to save these people. Maybe he's one of the doctors who decided that they should start sending bodies down the tunnel, and maybe he felt guilty about that.
He could have gotten sick and died there.
True, because I'm sure that there was many staff that contracted the tuberculosis, and or he could have been one of those doctors who decided that the children's pavilion should house the sick and the well children, and maybe seeing some of those children die, maybe he felt tremendous sense of guilt. But
I guess he wanted to stick around.
Yeah, well, there is a rumor, but there's no concrete proof that a doctor killed himself there at some point in the in either the early to mid 1920s, but there's no documented 100% proof where you can find it. And a lot of the deaths, honestly, are not completely recorded with accuracy because people were going there and they were, you know, in 1910 and they were being treated. But what if you gave us a false name to protect your family from being brought in? Or what if you, or what if you didn't know how to read or write, so you gave your name wrong? You know, or they were just overwhelmed with the amount of people coming in and dying at one point. I mean, in one year, in the 50s, they had 151 deaths alone in one year.
Oh boy.
That's one.
a lot.
Yeah, that's one every couple of days.
Yeah.
So it's I want to go here. It's not far from my house. It's about I want to say 2.5, maybe 3 hours with traffic, something. I would really love to go on one of the tours there and see what I can pick up, especially on the 5th floor and the 4th floor.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So
and just,
on the 4th floor, is there any documentation that says it was used for anything different than the other floors?
no, but some of the horrible, horrible, horrible things that they did to these people were I wasn't sure if I was going to say what they did, but I guess I can tell you a little bit about some of the things that they did. They actually had a uh, treatments that were so horrendous that I don't even know how people could even fathom, uh, you know, doing this to other people. But they would take people and they would open their chests and they would take out their ribs.
Oh,
Yes, yes, they would do that so that they could. Um, no, they didn't do shock treatment. No, they just did things like they would take a balloon and shove it in someone's chest, and then in turn they'd put air in the balloon with pretty bad complications. Not too many people survived that treatment,
I
but they
wonder
would
why.
actually take out the ribs and the muscles in there so that the lungs could expand. And that bloody procedure caused a lot of people to die. Really.
Painful deaths, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my
I mean,
gosh.
yes. I mean, disgusting things that they did.
That was like
Um,
a torture method they used in the medieval days.
yeah. And they also they took UV light. They believed that ultraviolet light would kill the bacteria. So they would put people under these ultraviolet lights in some of the different patio areas, and they would force them to be in this UV light to cure them. That was supposed to cure them. And I no, I do not think that that was something that was kind of would do anything to cure them. But yeah, a lot of people died when they took their ribs and their muscles out so that their lungs could expand.
Mm.
And it was like I said, it was very bloody. A lot of people bled to death during that. But
It's
the balloon probably caused embolisms because they were putting these balloons inside the chest cavity and then blowing air into them, and sometimes they'd pop. There's an embolus right there that bam kills somebody.
Mm.
But those were considered good treatments, even though they were extremely barbaric, because a lot of times these people were not like anesthetized completely.
Oh yeah.
I can't even imagine having someone cut anywhere on me with me being awake. You
No.
know, so there's probably some of the hauntings are probably some of those people who are kind of trapped there, living their own agony.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
I hate to say it, but you can almost with no better than our ideals of how to cure things and help was back then. You can see what their goal was, thinking that maybe
Yeah,
to remove the rib, but still, that is just Oh, wrong.
Absolutely horrendous.
I do want to say that when I needed to put credit for someone for a photograph, that is in the comments at the top. I want to make sure I give credit to photographs
Right.
that we
Yep.
used
There's
tonight.
some amazing photographs there.
Hmm. Wow.
There's another one we're going to, everybody.
Yep.
We got a lot of
Like we
traveling
say,
to do.
bus ride. We're going. Oh, that's
It's,
so neat. So, what are we going to do next Saturday?
I think next Saturday is going to be a little bit of a surprise. I do want to let everybody know, please keep May 15th 100% on your little calendar list. May 15th, we are going to have an international guest all the way from Norway who is going to come on our show at 3 o'clock in the morning, their time, to
Oh,
tell us some amazing stories on hauntings in Norway. And
that'd be
so,
I'm going to save the date on.
yes, that is definitely. But I think we're gonna. I think we're gonna do a mishmash next week. I think it'll be fun to have a little surprise element, and maybe closer to the date, we'll give you a little snippet, a little tinge of what we're going to do. It'll be fun.
Okay. And remember to pick up Cara's book, The Shadows of Satan. It's now in Kindle. You can order it
Oh,
in hardcover and paperback.
who won the book tonight?
That would be Kate Katrina.
Kate Katrina. Yay!
Okay. Kate,
Oh,
we'll
she
get a
already
hold of
left. I
you.
hope we can get a hold of her.
Oh, yes. We're Facebook friends.
Yay!
Yay. Congratulations, Kate. And it's time to say goodbye, you guys. That was fast.
Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Night.
Good night, everybody.